Yeah, hello and welcome to a new episode of our weekly Spielworxx chat, season 2. My name is Uli Blennemann, and this is a special XXL episode today, so we will run about 1 hour. And yesterday, luckily, gladly, I got my first vaccination shot, so I'm really happy about this. But I'm a little bit tired today. But this is all right because all the work today is done by my wonderful guest, by Matt Wolfe. And he's, of course, the designer of Spielworxx' next game, Squaring Circleville. And Squaring Circleville will be soon on Kickstarter. And Matt actually knows quite a few things about the design and will present them today using the TTS module, the fantastic online module done by Chris Spade. So I'm really looking forward to this. And already have some people here. Daniel is saying I'm on time, and he got the correct response by Matt. That's good. And most there, 5G for Uli. Yes, this is really interesting. I mentioned this by Twitter yesterday already. Our Wi-Fi actually after the vaccination in our basement is so much improved. So this is really strange. But if you are chipped, so maybe Bill Gates, and you never know. But enough of
How
this.
many people are actually going to believe, when you say something like that? That's scary.
Yeah, well, that's a scary stuff, but is it true? Is it not? You never know. But first, welcome, Matt. How are you?
I am doing very well. Thank you for introducing me and claiming that I know a lot about the game I designed. That's probably true.
It is absolutely true. And for you, if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat window and we will comment on them. Uh, Matt, I'm very concerned about the teetering pile of games over your right shoulder. Yes, but actually, we were talking a couple of minutes before, and he built this. He really built this in these minutes. So it's a masterfully work by Matt. Um,
Now they're all empty expansion boxes. The actual games are, on shelves around here, and it's just a pile of empty expansion boxes that maybe I'll repurpose for a prototype at some point.
yeah, and all these prototypes, by the way, they will go to Spielworxx. So thank you, Matt, for
You
this.
don't do small card games, so
New line maybe the new Matt
yeah.
Wolf card game line. So let's think about
You,
this.
you can't do a Spielworxx game in a box this size.
Difficult. It will be difficult. Yes. But Matt, first tell us something about yourself and your background, please.
Yeah, so hi everyone. In case you missed maybe like Conworks last fall, which feels like a million years ago at this
Yeah.
point. Yeah, my name is Matt Wolfe. I am the designer of Square and Circleville, as well as my previous games were Wombat Rescue and Avalanche Yeti Mountain. Those came out many years ago, and no one talks about them anymore, and that's okay. So we're going to focus on the new hotness, which is Circleville. I'm from the U.S. I live in North Carolina, and I've been here. I every time people ask like, "Oh, how long have you been living here?" and I have to think about it, like it's been 13 years now, which is it doesn't feel like it, and it just makes me realize how truly old that I've become. Which is, what are you gonna do? Maybe the vaccine shot will also decrease our age somehow. So that would be the way to make everyone go get it. Be like, yeah, it'll totally make you younger too.
Yeah, I think so. This is the second truth we are hearing here already today. So this is the absolute truth show. But Matt, what what made you interested in this topic for squaring circle? So what got you interested in designing a tabletop game on squaring circle?
Yeah, so there's an English language podcast called 99% Invisible. It's pretty popular, although apparently they just sold out to who do they sell out to? I can't remember who it is, but there's a couple of companies that are like buying up podcasts and making them exclusive, and so they just
Mhm.
got. I don't know if I'm going to continue listening to them anymore, but a couple of years ago, well, I guess probably like 4 years ago now, they did an episode about a bunch of mini stories that listeners would kind of like send in as suggestions for episodes, but they weren't like there wasn't enough there to do like a 30 to 45 minute very professional podcast episode. Uh, and one of these mini stories was the background of Circleville and how it was founded with a circular road
Mm-hmm.
structure, and that people hated it, and they went through this 19-year, or ended up being 19-year project to just completely redo the town's road system. I just thought that's fascinating. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is the only time period, at least in the United States, where you could even contemplate doing something that massive to a town. If you were to try to do that today, if there was some town that had like a really nasty road system, you'd never be able to do it. You just like it would cost too much money.
Mm-hmm.
People complain too much, and so it's just like what a unique period of time in the history of the U.S. where you'd even be able to attempt to do a large project like this, and then the project itself is just a fascinating
Mm-hmm.
idea. Just let's hit redo on our town and just completely change it and no longer have a name or a reason behind the name of the town. So yeah, it's just absolutely fascinating kind of process.
And when did this happen? So that was in the 19th century, right? Well, when did this restructuring happen, Matt?
Yeah, so it happened in 1837 is
Mm-hmm.
when it started, and then it lasted for 19 years. And the town itself was founded in the late 1700s, and so
Mm-hmm.
they actually dealt with the road system for I want to say about 50, 60 years before they decided to change it up. So it wasn't like they had it for like 2 years and they're like, let's change it. No, they had lived with it for a while
Mm-hmm.
before actually undergoing this project.
Hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Yeah, in Europe it's a little bit different because here roads are just roads going in all directions, sometimes around and making no sense, but it's a natural flow. And sometimes, of course, for hundreds or even thousands of years, old Roman roads. But in the US, and so this is especially for European viewers, most town cities have this square rectangular grid, right?
Mhm.
Mm.
Yep. Yeah, so the very first cities that were founded in the US did have a road system that was more common in Europe, where it was kind of like, yeah, you'd have weird angles and it was more going along with like the landscape. And
Mm.
then what happened was there was a huge fire in Boston, and
Mm.
this is a very long time ago, like back in like the 1700s, and they couldn't get fire trucks, and I guess they were probably horse-drawn at that
Mm.
time. They couldn't get them to the fire because of the road system,
Mm.
and so there was this giant kind of like rethinking of how cities were laid out in the United States, and they adopted more of the square grid. So that's why
Mm.
if you go to like Boston or Washington D.C., the road
Mm.
systems are very different than a lot of the other cities in the United
Mm.
States. They are very much a square grid. They're just cities that are old enough to predate that switch in city planning and road planning that happened in the U.S.
Hmm. Yeah, very interesting, and that's why, or this is one of the reasons, of course, why I love this game topic so much. But Matt, when did you start designing Squaring Circleville, and when did you basically finish your first design part before you handed the prototype in?
So I designed it 2 weeks ago,
Yeah, okay,
and
that's fast.
yeah, and these big Euro style games, they're so easy. You can just crank them out every 2 weeks. I started this in I would say in earnest in early 2018. Like I kind of wrote down the idea before that, but I didn't have a good idea of what I wanted to do with the game. I just knew that the theme was appealing, and it was
Yeah.
something that I wanted to try to make a game around. But yeah, in earnest, it was early 2018, and I was planning on taking it to the Unpub convention that
Hmm.
happens in non-pandemic times, happens once a year in either Delaware or Baltimore these days.
Hmm.
and that was going to be my kind of main game for that weekend. And if any viewers are unaware, the main Unpub convention is a convention for playtesting unpublished games that you just sign up for a table if you can grab one, which they're highly sought after, and playtesters just arrive for whatever their reasons are for arriving, and they come play test games all weekend and give you great feedback. And it's a phenomenal convention for designers to play test their games in. And I managed to get the design in a good enough state that I did it. I'm taking it to Unpub in 2018, and that was the real first sign that there was definitely something here that continued to iterate on it.
Mhm. Interesting. And at Unpub, just very quickly, are there any publishers as well, or is it just authors, designers plus testers, or are there publishers interested in already taking some interesting prototypes?
Yeah, there are some publishers that go there, although it's that's not the point of Unpub.
Hmm.
The point is the playtesting, and designers meeting also with other designers and kind of getting like networking there. And yeah, but the focus is definitely on the playtesting. But there always is every year, again, when the convention happens, that there'll be an announcement that things got signed. The Yeah, it just kind of depends on which publishers are there that year, and some of them try to be stealthy. They'll be
Yeah.
there, but wearing like a shirt, and you have to know that, oh, that's actually so and so from Renegade, something like that. And but yeah, I tune all that stuff out when I go. I don't care about trying to get something signed. My
Yeah.
focus is trying to get playtests.
Which makes absolute sense. And shall we move to TTS, to the online module, maybe? So
Sure.
and for everybody watching, and hello Matze, by the way, good to see you. Um, Please note, and this is especially true because this will go to YouTube tomorrow as well. So for people who do not watch everything, this is an online module. So this is not the physical game in play. So this is the tabletop simulator module made by Chris Spade, and we are really happy about the quality of this module. And now Chris will show you something. Let me bring up that one, and it should now be up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, big thanks to Chris for doing this module. This is way more professional than anything I've done in Tabletop Simulator. But yeah, it looks really good. It's got as my buddy Josh Mills says, he's a designer in my local group. He's like, oh, it's got that wonderful like Euro brown, to
Yeah.
it. Yeah, so this is pretty much all final artwork that you're seeing here on the screen, and this is set up for the kind of the default setup. So
Yeah.
you can see here we've got one of the overlays that start on the board. You're always going to choose one of the uh, larger sections in the game here. And so this is a section that is already completed. You can see the rest of the board here. You have yet to actually go through the process of trying to redo the road structure to make it, more typical American style grid. Um, and then we've got over here, we've got our rondelle. The neat little factoid about the town is that it actually had a octagon-shaped courthouse at the center of the circle. Because why not? So what you're doing with the rondelle here is you're going to be moving your assistant around there to basically get permits to be able to do work for changing the town over. And the colors that are at the location that you go to, those are going to be the actions that you'll be able to take in the game. So the rondelle, that's actually kind of a thematic part. of the game, which is a little different than some rondels and some other games. Down here, this is the year track, and this just kind of represents the time it took to do this whole project. So we mentioned earlier that it took 19 years in order to actually completely convert the town. So as sections get completed on the main board, players will be earning the tiles that are on here. And these are all just randomly set out at the start here. And eventually this will give you a pretty good sense of the pace of the game. So when you start getting down to here, you know that the game's going to be over pretty quickly at that point. The other thing that happens as the game goes on, these achievement tiles will start to get unlocked. And as these are unlocked, they're going to come onto this achievements table here. And that's going to allow players to get a unique endgame scoring tile just for them. So this sort of helps with the arc of the game. You can see that what's going to be available in the game, but you won't know exactly when they're going to become available to take and score them later on in the game. And then again, in the mod here, these are randomly picked from a subset of achievement tiles. And if you're playing the mod, there's more in the bag here. You can shuffle these up and put a random assortment out there. So then, let's see. There's a couple other things on the board. If we look at the main board section here, and Uli, if you want to zoom in a bit so people can see the text, yeah. So the Circleville is divided into basically 20 sections in the game here. The board is actually pretty consistent with the road structure of the town during this time. I did have to make a couple changes just for gameplay's sake, but it's pretty authentic to what the road structure and the actual structure locations of these buildings were during this time. So the number here, that just indicates the section. That's useful for solo play, and also so you know what tile to grab to bring over. So for example, this is tile 19, so that would go over to cover up 19 whenever that section would get completed. Then if you see the little trophy symbol there and the points box, that's just going to be points that players are going to score when the section is completed. And we'll go over the actions in a little bit more detail in a moment. But basically, when all the work is done in a section, that's when it's going to be completed. And then whoever did the most work for this section here, they would get 3 points, and the next player would get 2 points, etc.
And just one quick interruption. I'd like to briefly say to Bess. So good seeing you, and also to Chris. This is excellent seeing you. And one small part about the components. These large sections that Matt had in his virtual finger, let's put it this way, this is actually cardboard. So these are large tiles that are made like this, so from punch boards. But back to you, Matt. Sorry for interrupting.
No, it can definitely be tough to tell sometimes in Tabletop Simulator what an actual component is going to be. But yeah, this is all classic Spielworxx. Like, there's no plastic. It's wood, cardboard, paper. It's the good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then the last thing I'll point out here before we start talking about how to play is the player board. If you want to scroll down to the yellow player board.
Oops. You see, I'm using TTS so much that I can't really handle the stuff. But no, everybody should see it now. Yeah.
Okay, so the player board, this is basically the actions that you can do in the game, and the colors are mapped to specific actions. throughout the game, you're going to be collecting tiles from the rondel that's on the main board, and you'll be putting them on your player board, and that's going to increase the basically the power level that you have for that particular action. And we'll talk about the actions in detail in a minute. And for those of you who like solo games, oh no, is the solo not in the back here?
It is, but I think it's on the side. It's not on this table. But Square and Circleville, in the printed version, there will be on the back side of these player tableaus, player mats, there will be the 4 different solo boards. So you can play this game with from 1 to 4. But here, both sides are the 2-player board. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Well then, I won't show off the solo players. Okay. Anything you want me to mention before we start talking about how to play in detail, or does anyone in chat have a question before we start talking about details?
I think people are waiting for your action description because you are doing excellently here, Matt. One quick mention is each player also has his player aid card here. So it's 2-sided, and it tells you the sequence of play, but it also tells you what the various action tiles mean on the equipment tiles on the board. So it's helpful. And of course, because it's a dual language edition, everything, the player aids, rules, this is in 2 languages, so German and English. So back to you, Matt. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, so Square and Circleville, it's a turn-based game. And what you're going to do on your turn is the very first thing you're going to do, if you want to focus on the rondel, Uli,
Yeah.
you're going to move your assistant on the rondel here. The default movement is you can move up to 2 spaces. There's some equipment that can change that, and how other players are arranged on the rondel can also change that. So there's a little bit of interactivity here. So if I'm the yellow player, let's say it's my turn, I can move up to 2 spaces, which would mean I can move here and here, but I also could choose to ignore occupied spaces. So because the white player went to here, that's going to actually open up more spaces for me on the rondel. And because the black player went here, if I wanted to, I can move here for 1, I can move here for 2, or I can move basically any of the spots in between to choose what 2 actions I want to do for my turn. So let's say that I want to go, maybe I want to go here, and that's totally fine. You can choose the same location as someone else. There's no blocking or anything like that on the rondel here. All right, so then once you have moved your assistant, then the 2 colors that are at the location are going to determine the 2 actions that you get to do for your turn. You can do them in whatever order you would like. So in this case, I get an orange action and a red action. I could do orange first, then red, or I could do red, then orange. Totally up to you. So let's look at a player board. So I'm going to look at the yellow player board.
Yeah. Oops. You see how good I am. Yeah.
You're gonna make people on watching the video seasick.
Yeah. Well, so there has to be a security stuff here on the scene. Well, if you're seasick, better don't watch.
Take Dramamine before you watch any more of this video. Just pause it. Okay, so there are 4 basic actions that are indicated by the player board, and then there's some alternate actions that you can do instead. So the red action, this action is for deconstructing existing roads in Circleville. At the beginning of the game, you have level 1 actions for all of these different actions. Later on in the game, you're going to be collecting the tiles, or later on in your turn, rather, you're going to be collecting tiles and make yourself more powerful. So if I'm taking this red action as my first turn of the game, that means that I get to demolish 2 roads.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that works is you take some cubes from your supply, and you're going to look on the board to see where your supervisor currently is. So my supervisor was standing on its head. That's weird. So as part of your action, for every action you take, you can move your supervisor one adjacent section. So your supervisors are always going to start at the beginning of the game in whatever section on the board is completed. So as part of my action, I could move to an adjacent section, and adjacent is basically crossing a road.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just wait for someone to make a "why did the supervisor cross the road" joke. Treat them like chickens. But so I'm going to move from section 10 to section 20. And if you see here in section 20, if you want to zoom in here, Uli.
Yeah, I try. I'm done. Yeah.
Closer.
Oh, even closer.
Yes.
Oh,
You gotta
real
really zoom in
huge.
there.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So in section 20 here, and for every section, there'll be a certain number of cubes. Red cubes indicate the roads that have to be deconstructed, and there'll be a certain number of blue cubes that indicate the number of roads that have to be constructed. So in this example, because I'm taking a red action, I would put my two cubes over the red spaces on the board, and that means I have deconstructed those two roads in this section, and that's going to get us closer to completing this section. So then the blue action is the opposite of red. So same idea. When you take a blue action, you're just going to put cubes on blue spaces in your current section up to whatever your current power level is for the blue action.
So just briefly, what is the power level again? This is the number, right? On
Yes.
the
So
power.
yeah, if you want to zoom in on the back on the yellow board.
So if you see this one here, it's always, oops, to the left. I should zoom in a little bit more. Seasickness. Yeah. So what is the number again, Matt? How many actions or how many cubes can you do here?
Yeah, so for yellow and blue, it'll be probably a little hard to see on the screen, but it's very clear in the actual TTS mod and on the printed components. But the number here is the number of cubes that you can put out onto either red or blue spaces on the board. For the orange and green actions, which we'll go over now, these refer to structures that exist in the town. So the number is the number of structures that you can work with. Orange is to raise a structure.
Let me zoom in. Sorry here.
Yep.
Oops. So that people actually can see something. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, orange is to raise buildings. Raise R-A-Z-E, not the other raise. So back here in section 20, there are two natural color structures that are here. And because I am taking a level 1 orange action, I can choose one of these to raise. I'm going to put it over here on the buildings queue, or structures queue, rather. And then once again, I'm going to put one of my cubes onto that space to indicate that I did the work to raise that building. And that's something that has to be done in order to complete a section. Got to get all the existing structures out of that section. Then the green action is the opposite. That's where you're going to build something from the structures queue. Normally, you have to build from the front, although there are some equipment and bonus tiles that would allow you to break that rule. But for normally, this is a true queue, so whatever is at the front of the queue, that's the thing you have to build. So if I were taking a green action, let's say that my supervisor was here in this completed section 10, completed sections are where you are allowed to basically rebuild structures that were previously raised. So I would put the structure here. I would mark my work with a cube. Always want to take credit for
of course.
And then every time you put a cube in a completed section on the board, you're going to mark that work on the track here. That's just for endgame scoring, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Makes it easier instead of counting up a bunch of cubes in a quadrant. You'll just kind of track how many you've got on the quadrant tracker there. Okay. So those are the 4 basic actions.
And one quick interruption, because I see in the chat. So first, Daniel, you're a true brute. That's clear. But there's a question from Blue Dane 7. When will this be on Kickstarter? It will be most probably on Kickstarter on June 3. So Daniel was true. I didn't say the actual date. I said soon. So we are aiming for June 3rd. That it will be on Kickstarter. So hopefully this helps. And back to you, Matt. And I try to scroll better here, so I see some people are already seasick.
All right. So those are the 4 basic actions in the game. There are also some alternate actions. So Uli, if you want to zoom in way close on the yellow player board again.
Let me just see. I think I need to get it back a little bit, otherwise people can't see this. I think this should do. Yeah.
Okay. So over on the left side of your player board, there are alternate actions that you can do instead of the basic action. The way that you do those is, or I should say the way that you have access to them is by increasing the level of a color. So I'm going to, let's pretend that I've got some tiles on here. Let me grab ones. I'll explain how these actually get on your player board in a minute. But let's say for the yellow player board here that I have a level 3 red right now because I've got these 2 tiles that are on my player board. So that means that when I am taking a red action, if I don't want to do the basic action of deconstructing roads, instead I can do one of the basic action, or rather I can do an alternate action that is at or below the level of that color. So what I can do right now, I could do the basic alternate action, or the level 1 alternate action, which allows you to move your supervisor on the board 1 to 3 spaces. Because you always have to do work wherever your supervisor is located on the board, occasionally you will want to take that action to be able to move to a more advantageous situation and section on the board. That's going to let you move very rapidly across Circleville. The level 2 alternate action, you can take a piece of equipment. If you want to scroll on over to the equipment area, Uli.
I did.
All right. So there are always going to be 3 equipment tiles per player that will be in a display. So for the default mod here, it's just set up that there are 12 tiles. If you are playing this mod and you have fewer than 4 players, you just want to put out a random set of equipment, 3 per player. So when you take the alternate level 2 action, you can just take a piece of equipment over here and install it in your player board. And let's say, which one do I want? Let's grab this one. And so I grab that, and on the right side of your player board, you have these 3 slots in which you can install equipment. So you can have up to 3 pieces of equipment at a time. This particular equipment that I just grabbed would allow me to go counterclockwise on the rondelle when I do step 1 of my turn instead of clockwise. So that can be very powerful to go backwards. Or Widdershins if you prefer that. But no one says that. I tried to put that in the rule book and Uli wouldn't let me. Okay. The level 3 alternate action, this allows you to beautify a section that has been completed in the town. So we have 1 section that is completed, and So there is this little beautify icon on each section. Normally, only one player is able to beautify a section, although there's one piece of equipment that lets you break that rule. So I do that, and I would increase my marker on the matching quadrant track, and that's just giving me a bigger lead over my competitors for endgame points. Okay, let's go back to the yellow player board. I'll talk about the last two alternate actions that I cannot do right now because none of the levels on my player board have access to that, but we'll pretend that I was trying to do it. So the next one here, this allows you to improve a structure that had already been rebuilt in the town. So once again, you're going to grab a cube, and we'll go back over to this completed section. So here, let's pretend that we've got two structures that are completed. So that would mean that black it would be 1 on the quadrant track here. So by taking a level 4 alternate action, you can improve a structure. So I could, as the yellow player, I could put a cube here to improve this structure, or I could put one down here. In this case, because they're the same building type, it probably doesn't matter. But if we had something like, let's pretend that this structure had been rebuilt here, you may have an achievement tile that would matter. So you might choose to put your yellow cube next to this silver structure instead of this natural color structure here. And then the final alternate action that you can do, if you want to go back to the yellow player board, the top level one, this is how you grab the achievement tiles that I've mentioned a couple times. These are endgame scoring tiles, and they will be in this achievements table after players have completed enough sections to start unlocking them. So, for example, if this one was out, actually, that's a bad example. This one. If this one was out there, and if I had an action with which I had a high enough level, I could grab this. I would take it and install it in one of the slots to the left of my player board. If I had equipment in that slot, I would have to get rid of it. So these slots are used for both equipment and for these achievement tiles. And then once you have that achievement tile, that's going to be endgame scoring just for you. This one in particular means every cube that you have on a silver building is going to get you 2 points at the end of the game.
Which is nice.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I just put my yellow cube on that silver building. It's like I planned this. And then because I installed this achievement tile, that means I only have 2 slots that are now open for either equipment tiles or more achievement tiles. So you do want to be careful about which achievement tiles you get, because once you have them, they're yours. You can never get rid of them. And then you want to try, of course, to score as many points off of them as you can, because this is a competitive game. I guess I never actually said that. But yes, this is a competitive game, not a cooperative game. All right. I think the last thing that we can show here is exactly what happens when you complete a section. We've kind of talked about that. So let's go back to section 20 here. And so let's say that the white player here has a couple cubes, and we've got a pink fan on the chat. So we'll get pink up here. Pink is a great player color.
It is. Yeah. Absolutely.
And this, so this section is almost completed. We've done all the roads in this section. We've done one of the structures, but we have one final structure that has to be removed from this section. So let's say that pink is the player that does this. Actually, no. Yeah, let's say that. So pink would take an orange action to be able to remove that structure. And then what we would do, we would pause the pink's turn after they completed that orange action, and we would score this section. So the way it works is whoever has the most cubes in the section, they score the largest point value for that section. So pink would score 5 points, yellow would score 3 points, and then white would score 2 points.
So Matt, why is the second number from the left, why is it shaded differently in the victory points section?
We did that just to be confusing to people.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
If you're playing a 2-player game, you ignore the shaded one. So yeah, if you and I were playing Uli, and most likely you would have had the most cubes in this section,
No.
so you would score 5 points and I would score 2.
Mm-hmm.
Then what we do after scoring points is we'll take all these cubes off, set them aside, and we'll take the tile that overlays that section. And so you can see now on the new section that the roads are more normal square grid, and we're slowly getting the town to the new standard. Because the pink player had the most cubes, they will put a cube on this section, and that means that they will advance on, if I grab the right color here, they will advance on the matching quadrant track. And then whoever the active player is, whoever just did the final work in that section, they're going to get the next year bonus tile. They take that, and in this case, I'm going to pretend it's yellow just because I'm using the yellow player. You take that, you put it next to your player board, and that is a one-use tile that you can use at any point on your turn. This one in particular would allow you to raise one structure from anywhere on the board, and you can your supervisor doesn't have to be there, so it's a really nice, powerful little one-time bonus.
Mm-hmm.
The other neat thing about this is after you use it, you flip it over, and you put it anywhere you want on your player board to increase your level of that player board. So in this way, I could make my red power even better than it currently is.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The last thing that you do on your turn is you are going to grab whatever tile is on the top of the action tile stack next to your rondel location. Keep going, Uli. You're almost there.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. So I would grab this blue tile, and it would go onto the matching color on my player board. And that will increase my level for that color. So the next time I get a blue tile, I'll be at level 3, which would allow me to then construct 3 new roads. And if I get it all the way to the top, then I'd be able to construct 5 roads for a blue action.
Yeah, and another neat thing is when you're grabbing this tile for your first or second action, of course, at the start of the game, there are 4 tiles here stacked up. And so for the next player, maybe this player is thinking, well, I'm doing orange and red, but suddenly there is no orange anymore. So you can also view the other player boards. Oh, this player probably is in need of that tile. So you can grab it. So that's also, in my opinion, at least a very interesting mechanic. Mm-hmm.
All right. Then I guess the last thing I'll do, we'll go over endgame scoring real quick, unless people have questions, and feel free to post in the chat. So the game is over when Circleville has been completely redone. So all the roads, all the tiles over here are going to be on the matching sections. So they're not going to sit right because we still have buildings on the board here. But yeah, when all the sections are completed, that's going to trigger the end of the game. Then endgame points are this little box down here. So for each quadrant on the board, and you can kind of see that there are 4 different color quadrants. So I'll put some tiles here on the board to show that. So for each quadrant, you're going to look to see who is highest on the quadrant track. They're going to get the 9 points. And then if you're playing a 3 or 4 player game, the next player gets 6, etc. The 2-player game, skip that. Then the player in second place will get 3 points. Then you'll score all your achievement tiles, and those will just be variable based on how well you achieved your achievement tile. And then if you have any leftover year bonus tiles, you might get a point or two for those, depending on what you have left at the end. You should absolutely use your year bonus tiles.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They're way more valuable to
Yeah.
use, but once in a while you get one late in the game and you just didn't have an opportunity to use it, so you'll still get something, even if
Mm-hmm.
yeah, wasn't enough time to use it. Then whoever has the most points wins, and they win a free trip to Circleville, Ohio, which is a real place.
Yeah, so sponsored by Matt, I think, and Daniel also. So they are sponsoring this free trip. But I think, Matt, I would like to know one thing in addition. So you were saying, and of course this is absolutely correct, that you are doing 2 actions when it's your turn. But let's say I want to do 3 actions. So how can I do so, and how is this done?
Yes, you can. So let me set up the yellow player board here.
Mm-hmm.
We'll pretend that we are much further into the game.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so we have something. Let me grab one more. Okay. So let's say we're set up. Actually, let me grab one file tile here. All right. So looking at the yellow player board, let's say we have something like this. So the yellow player currently has a level 5 in the red color, level 3 in blue, a level 2 in orange, and a level 3 in green.
Mm-hmm.
After they have done their 2 actions for their turn, there is an optional third step of your turn, which is if you have at least one tile for every color on your player board, you may remove one tile from each column to immediately take one bonus action.
Mm-hmm.
These tiles are out of the game. You can just put them back in the box. So you have reduced the power levels on all 4 of your action columns, but you get to do a bonus action immediately, and that can be very powerful if you time that well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the trade-off for getting that extra action is you have to at least temporarily reduce the amount of work that you can do with each action. But yeah, doing that at the right time is a very important part.
Yeah.
That's an excellent question, Uli. Thank you for
Yeah,
asking.
yeah, and I like this mechanic a lot. And at first, and when it's your first game, you're not really appreciating it. You think I have to level up on all things to get better in each of the 4 actions, so that I have a 3 level or maybe a 5 level for red and blue. So that's fantastic. But doing a bonus action at the right time, which means instead of 2 actions, you're doing 3, can be really powerful. If you want to finish up a section, want to go into the lead in one section. So this is crucial. But as Matt said, of course, you are losing power in all 4 actions. So you have to time this well. But after a while, you get a good rhythm, in my opinion. And of course, you are getting more tiles later, because normally there is more stuff in here. And how is, let's say, and where the yellow and the black assistant are, let's say there aren't any tiles anymore. So what is happening, Matt? So say it is in this way. Yeah.
Yeah. So if let's say if yellow just took the last tile off the stack, this stack here is going to be the refill stack. So you know exactly what colors will be available the next time a stack gets filled, and then you pull out 4 tiles out of the bag to refill the upcoming stack here. So yeah, you do have some uncertainty with what colors are going to be refilled, but you have a lot of certainty of what colors will be available on the rondel for your at least your next turn.
Yeah. So really, Matt, this was fantastic. Thank you very much for this thorough explanation. Of course, there's a lot more you need to know about some equipment tiles, some achievement tiles, and the tempo of the game, when to score, when maybe not to score. This is all in addition, of course. But do you have some questions Yeah, you're saying you're all too quiet. Probably they think, wow, this was awesome, Matt. So
I have lulled everyone to sleep,
no, you
and
haven't. That was fantastic. But let's get back to Daniel is asking, you want me to talk more? No, actually, no. But if you have some questions, we can get back to the module. But otherwise, let me bring it down for a second. So, Matt, people can now see your beautiful face again here. Um, yeah, so some basic general stuff on the game. So it will be in Spielworxx, if you know Spielworxx games, in our standard square box, and there's really a lot in this game. This huge game board is in millimeters. It's 840 by 590 millimeters, so that's Yinzi size. Of course, you have the player mats, and again, what you did not see is that there are four different solo bots with different levels of difficulty. So you can even play with two solo bots if you want to do so. It's totally up to you. And the solo bots, they have their own player aid card also that you did not see on the TTS table because it was a multiplayer thing. And yeah, this game will go to Kickstarter most probably in early June, but I will mention this definitely here next week. And yeah, Matt, or let's see, is there any question here in the chat? I think people are fine. Let me briefly mention the BGG URL. So if you would like to follow the progress of the game, the final steps at BGG, please do so. And there will be a lot more details on that page in a couple of days. Um,
I guess I should also mention this is the first in the Urban Evolution series.
Wonderful,
Yeah,
yes.
I forgot about that. Yeah, there's already one sequel to this game called Racing Chicago that we'll talk about in the future. But yeah, so it's going to be part of a series, hopefully a trilogy. The third game is still under design. Uli hasn't seen that one yet.
Yeah, but I already know the title. It's Billabü, Germany. So this is really urban evolution. So going wrong. So no,
So what's the weird construction thing that happened in your neck of the woods then?
that for a couple of hundred years there was no construction, most probably then because nobody lived here. Yeah, no, there is one famous feature actually at Billerbeck. There's a huge church here because this area here near Münster is very Catholic, and Münster has this huge church, has so many different churches, important ones. And Billerbeck was a small village, small town. But if you come to Billerbeck, you see the huge dome, the huge church from afar, and that was only built in the early 20th century because the people living here wanted to show Münster we can do this as well. So it's way oversized, but yeah. So why to build this? It's an interesting question. Um, Billerbeck is about how Uli moved there. Yes, right. Raising Chicago is also perfectly balanced. As I won on my first play. Yes, I'm really excited about Raising Chicago too. We will definitely talk about that game most probably in October at Conworks 2. And for now, if you are interested, please check out Squaring Circleville, maybe first at BGG, maybe at the Spielworxx website, and then when the Kickstarter is active, if you like, please support that game. I'd really love that. Um, Next week will be a regular episode, so with me presenting Spielworxx news and industry news, definitely also on Squaring Circleville. And first, thank you to all viewers being part of the Spielworxx chat. And of course, thank you very, very much, Matt, for this great explanation. And people I'm sorry that my scrolling will make you seasick. So I will improve. But as you know, I'm a Vessel guy, and in Vessel it's so much easier. So basically, I hate TTS. Um,
It's a
um,
necessary evil right now.
yeah, and Spieletreffen Verteiler is saying good health to everyone. And there is Chris. So yeah, and again, Chris did this wonderful TTS module. So thank you so much for it. This is really wonderful. And yeah, if you have some questions that you'd like to ask in advance, some comments that you would mail to me, please do so at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. And till next week, bleibt gesund, Black Lives Matter. Bye bye. Bye.